All right, hello and welcome. I'm Colin Daniel and I'm from riffninja.com, and this is a series of 3 lessons, and this is lesson number 2. Yeah, this is the second step. We're taking a look at the fabulous tune that Jimi Hendrix penned, Voodoo Child. Now, what we're going to do is, in the first lesson, I showed you the bass riff and an E augmented chord, and we pieced them together. So we pieced that all together, right? Now we're going to add another riff, so we can alternate between and the riff. And this is a lot of fun. Again, as a reminder, I already said this in the first lesson, but E pentatonic minor is the scale that we're drawing from. That's a minor scale. E pentatonic minor is really the most common of all scales on the guitar. Would have to be E pentatonic minor. Easiest too, because it uses all 6 open strings too involved in it. And you'll see other variations of the scale. Many different variations. That's just one of many. But the real true pentatonic minor is the straightforward one, and like I said, there's more modifications. And now we're going to learn to do a string stretch and a pull-off. The string stretch, there's rarely a time, even in blues, when a string stretch isn't going to another note that belongs in the scale already. And in this case, we're going to take the 3rd string, and I'm going to use my 2nd finger, right? I'm going to stretch up. Now, this can be a problem, and I'm going to mention this because I didn't mention it in the first lesson, and that is that keep your fingers lined up. Like in the first lesson when I played my riff, you'll notice I played the 3rd fret with my 3rd finger and the 2nd fret with my 2nd finger. 1 finger per fret per position, so I'm in the open position. So, you know, my 1st finger takes care of any notes I need from the 1st fret, and the 2nd finger takes care of any notes I need from the 2nd fret, and the 3rd finger takes care of any notes I need from the 3rd fret, and 4th finger for the 4th fret. And the reason for that is for efficiency rather than having to move around, because now that I'm teaching you this string stretch, you really do need to use that 2nd finger, or you're not going to get the speed you need. The strength comes from your 2nd finger, and if you have a problem with strength, you can always use your 1st finger in behind it. Now, you don't want to stretch too far, right? The idea is to get underneath that, and I'm stretching from the 3rd string, 2nd fret, 1 tone to a B. So the trick is, and it's only for a split second, it's much harder for me to hold that stretch for like a long period of time, because your strings are so close to the nut here, the tension's a little tighter, it's a little more taut, right? It's harder, it takes more strength to stretch. But with just a quick jerk of the wrist and a push up with my finger, you can get it, because it's just like playing 3 notes in one pick. You pick, stretch, let it ring, pull off. Pull off is hard to do slow, but what a pull off is, really is, when you take your, in this case, my 2nd finger, and as I let the string come back to its original pitch, so I pick the A, stretch up to the B, come back down to the A, and then pull off the A, and pluck the G open. And that's our riff. Ending on the E, of course. So the trick is to treat that stretch just like playing an extra note. And they're all even. It's done in one nice smooth sequence. Right? And once you get that, then you just hit the E root on the 2nd fret, 4th string. And then go back to the chord. So it's like this. Very cool. Faster. Now, one more thing. This doesn't happen all the time, but in some of the versions that Jimi played and the Stevie Ray Vaughan, they also use the open B and the E with the string stretch, like this. And you let them ring out. So as you're stretching up, they hit the B and the E string. Not all the time, just for an effect sometimes. So now. That adds a little more presence to your riff, right? Hard to make that effect sound really good at a slower speed. It's got to be done in one nice execution. And I strike that, as I'm striking the string stretch, I let the B and the E in on the same stroke. If I do it slow, though, it doesn't quite sound right, because that B and that E shouldn't be like really prominent. It should be there as a drone, a backup to fatten it up, not to be the strong notes, but right in behind it. Very cool. So you notice what I'm doing is I'm going first to the bass riff, then the chord, the E augmented ninth, then the riff, and I'm alternating between them by using the bass riff to bounce back and forth between the chord and the second riff, like this. There's all these different combinations of it, but alternating is a good place to start. One more thing to add to this lesson, and that's the E augmented ninth chord. I call this the Jimi chord. This is another way to play it. There's very little difference in sound between these two chords. They're very, very close, but this has a slightly different tonality, and it's a good chord to learn. It comes from this B minor, or B ninth, should I say, not B minor, B ninth chord. You know, so you're going B ninth, C ninth, D ninth, E ninth, and it's a kink bar chord, but here at the E position, we have some open strings that work very nicely. So we leave the open E, 6th string, and we play our first finger on the 6th fret, 4th string, and our second finger on the 5th fret, 7th, or should I say the 5th string, 7th fret, and the third finger on the 3rd string, 7th fret, and then pinky on the 8th fret, 2nd string, and you play both open E strings. And that is another E sharp ninth or E augmented ninth. Now, when you get real good, you bounce back and forth between these chords. So I might alternate between the chords and the bass riff and the string stretch at the same time. Now how I get to that is the same cheating trick I did before, which is when I come out of that string stretch or when I come out of the riff, I strike the E bass note and let it ring, and while I'm doing that, I set my left hand fingers up for the E9 chord. So you might want to practice just going from that bass riff back to the E9th at the 7th fret, just to get the hang of it, and then blend them together like I showed you just a minute or two earlier. And that concludes lesson number 2 on the style, Jimi Hendrix style, Voodoo Child. And we'll see you in lesson number 3.